There's two things that I think make sense. I like the Economic Development Commission and the way that Economic Development Commission will be structured. It would actually pull leaders or appointments from leaders throughout the county, and that really kind of ties back partnership. I think that makes sense. And I also agree with that there are administrative operations that we need to look at in order to streamline those. So those are aspects of the proposal that I do think make sense and that do support the principles that I think that people are looking for in terms of an efficient government.
30 seconds, Mr. Kelly.
Hey, I want to thank Angela Ty Bennett, another one of our great candidates, for a wonderful question. There are many things I like about Issue 6, including the first representative government in that county council, including a strong executive that instead of a three-headed monster can take the lead. And I don't have much time, so many other things, including features to prevent patronage, to ensure internal audits. 95% of it is good.
Thank you both, and thank you, audience, for those questions. I will now have a final question for each representative with a time to respond of 3 minutes each. Please answer my question and use the remaining part of that time as you see fit for your closing. They will answer this question in the reverse order of the opening. That means Mr. Kelly will go first. Thank you. I have to take better notes. So the question. Issue 5 supporters say the failure to address campaign finance is one problem with Issue 6. How do you plan to address campaign finance?
I think it would be fine if there is a charter commission for that commission to seriously consider an inclusion in the new charter for prevention of campaign finance abuses, and I think it should be in there. And I hope, regardless if Issue 6 passes or not, that we look at including that and other features that Ron mentioned. I think that would be fine. It's not a perfect charter, Issue 6, but 95% is a pretty good start. But we should strive to make it 100%. And as far as the rest of my time, I just want to mention that cost savings, all this, in this entire campaign, Issue 6 and Issue 5, most of the people involved have been very careful not to talk about corruption. Now, because we're the citizens, and we're not really politicians, we don't have to play by those rules. So I am going to talk about corruption. Corruption is awful. Corruption is terrible. Corruption has brought this county government to its knees. It barely operates anymore. It has to review contracts with outside lawyers all the time. It has to look over its shoulder. Every few days, some FBI agents are coming into offices and taking out documents. That is, even though no one likes to say it, that is a very good reason for county reform right now. And that is why we're for it. That is one of the most important reasons. We have to clean house here, and we have to do it now. We can't wait another year. We can't wait 2. We have to do it right now. And in conclusion, all I want to say is that these great candidates, these great volunteer, independent, fair-minded candidates, they should be appreciated. And I hope you will remember the names on November 3rd. Angela Bennett, Jack Boyle, James Brady, Ruth Brady, Roz McAllister, Joe Miller, Mary O'Malley, Jamie Pilla, Bill Russo, Tom Slavin, Linda Smeagol, Elaine Trapp, Tom Wilson, and Pat Wright. They seek election to an office that pays no salary, confers no power, and awards no benefits. They do not want and will not accept anything from county government for their services, no jobs, no contracts, no consideration of any kind. They are not allied with any political, partisan, or corporate interest. They have no private agendas. They have no interest at all except to serve all the citizens, to help reform and restore good, honest, open, and efficient government in our community. So regardless of your decision on Issue 5 or Issue 6, you can vote for these good candidates, and I hope you do.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. 3 minutes, beginning with the idea of campaign finance reform.
Well, the issue of campaign finance reform was an issue that was raised by our campaign. So clearly, those are ethics reform concepts and features that we think are important. Again, as I mentioned earlier, real reform is not about just changing structure, it's about changing behavior. And so those behavior changing features are definitely something that we want to consider. So yes, campaign finance reform would be a part of the package that we would deliver to the people. Just some final thoughts. Again, I can't stress enough the importance of actually reading the Issue 6 proposed charter. And I recognize that for most of us, we're all busy. Maybe we won't take the time, or we won't have the time to do it. And maybe even if we do read it, we're not able to connect the dots. But when we start talking about what real reform really means, what's wrong with our government, yes, corruption is what's wrong with our government. But corruption is about people. It's not about structure. There are some things that you can bake into a charter to address behaviors, but at the end of the day, it's up to us as electors to get the right people in place. So if the only reason why you're going to vote for Issue 5 or Issue 6 or vote on this kind of reform is a result of corruption, I think you're missing out on a big opportunity, because you can deal with that today on Election Day without going through a reform effort. The important thing is, from our perspective, is it's about transparency. We want to make sure that we do this in an open and transparent process. We want to make sure that key constituencies are a part of the process. We want to make sure that we have diversity of thought. We do want to make sure that there's an independent process. I'll continue to take issue with the challenge that we're not an independent group, just as Angela, Ms. Bennett will continue to take issue that, that they're not an insurance policy for Issue 6. So you have to make your own conclusions and come to form your own judgment on those issues. But what I can say is I told you to explain the background of our Slate members in economic development, business management, municipal management, et cetera. I can tell you that we've actually made a promise. We're the only Slate that has made a commitment to the people to do a process in an open process, or to develop a charter in an open process, and to actually put a real charter with real meaningful change on the ballot next year. So that's a promise. It's in writing. It's signed by us. And then finally, I don't care what anybody says, Issue 6 and Issue 5, can they coexist? There's language in the Issue 6 proposal that talks about the formation of a charter commission that's different than the elective process that we have in the Constitution. Those are legal issues that have to be resolved. So, I'll say that. Of course, no one really knows what ultimately happened, but I can tell you that's a conflict that's going to have to be resolved. So, up or down vote, yes or no, on Issues 5 and Issue 6.
You've been listening to Ron Johnson and Thomas Kelly. Thank them both for their time. I'm sure there'll be a few more conversations about Issues 5 and 6, how to vote in these slates between now and Election Day, which is in less than 2 weeks. Please vote November 3rd. Jim?
Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we've been listening to a debate between Real Reform Done Right, represented by Mr. Ron Johnson, and Citizens Reform Charter Commission, represented by Tom Kelly. Thank you, Rich Jackson, and 98.3 Idea Stream. Thank you, audience. This forum is now adjourned.